Democrats really are between a rock and a hard place here. They'd probably like to dump Biden, but for better or worse, they're stuck with him. Right now, it's like buying a box full of air. Nothing inside is worth anything, but it's all they got.
She's exactly right. Joining me now is Raymond Arroyo, Fox News contributor, and Mike Davis, founder and president of the Article 3 Project. All right, Raymond, should the president be primaried?
Well, look, Jason, the presidency is not Joe Biden's door prize, okay? And even if it were, he probably wouldn't know which door to walk through to get it. So when a man has difficulty standing still with a bicycle, when that's a challenge, he has to be primaried to see if he's able, physically, mentally, and otherwise, to carry out the remainder of the office, that the 4 years that he's running for. But to just assume, because he won last time, that he's entitled to it now, I'm sorry, that doesn't pass the smell test. And for the DNC to shut down all debates and say, no, we're not having debates, we're basically not having a challenger. You better go tell that to RFK Jr., who's already polling in the 20s. That's only going to go up as people continue to see Biden decomposed before their eyes.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. Robert Gibbs revealed, Mike, how the Democrats plan to handle Biden's high disapproval rating. Have a look at this.
As we see us going from that 2022 election into 2024, it is how to take those soft disapprove numbers, essentially, and use that contrast with Republicans to say, even if you disapprove of the job that currently Joe Biden is doing, when compared to Republicans for the next 4 years, you're going to side with the reelection of the president.
All right, so, Mike, the strategy, who cares if Biden is terrible? Republicans are worse. Is this really a strategy that can win?
You know, back with President Trump, we had peace and prosperity until Democrats used COVID to shut down our country and BLM riots to terrorize America. You know, Trump may have mean tweets from time to time, but I think the American people realize they made a big mistake by electing Joe Biden as the president of the United States.
Yeah, Raymond, I got to tell you, the Democrats, they are panicked that they could lose again. The New York Magazine is writing, Trump won a lesser of two evils election and came very close to winning another. Democrats need to do everything in their power to make Joe Biden more successful and popular. So, Raymond, they insist Joe Biden has a messaging problem, as if they need more cowbell. But it's really a policy problem, isn't it, rather than more Joe Biden at the microphone?
Well, it's a policy problem, and it's an execution and communication problem. Joe Biden is a broken and sad vessel. Let's face it. He's broken faith with his party on the issues dear to them, and he's turned off the rest of America through his policymaking that didn't end up anywhere near the campaign promises of unity and togetherness and healing the soul of the country, which he promised. And then, waiting in the wings, is Kamala Harris, which is the only thing more disastrous than Joe Biden. So I go figure that. I mean, I just pulled her poll numbers on 538. She's at 51% disapproval numbers, the highest disapproval rating of any VP ever. And this is a woman who can't explain science and space to, middle graders. She's got a problem, and she has no constituency. So when that's in the wings, Joe Biden's their only option. They're going to push him until they can push him no more.
Yeah, Mike, I remember when Kamala Harris dropped out of the race. I think she was polling in 8th place in her home state of California. That's when she exited the race. That's where she was at. And nobody thinks that she is properly prepared to take on the mantle of the presidency.
And she'll never be properly prepared to take on the mantle of the presidency. Can anyone name one accomplishment by Kamala Harris other than getting elected to office? Has she accomplished anything in her life? And Joe Biden said he would only pick a black woman as his vice president, and he picked Kamala Harris, who clearly could not be the president of the United States. It shows Joe Biden's horrific judgment.
Yeah, and Raymond, the other problem that Joe Biden has, he can't even answer this most simple of questions. The question would be, how many grandchildren do you have? I don't think that he could answer that question.
Well, apparently now the White House has made a policy decision to say the president only has 6 grandchildren, when in fact he has 7. The last being Hunter Biden's love child. There's this New York Times piece, and I have to tell you, Jason, politics aside, you read this story about this 4-year-old child who knows her grandfather is the president of the United States, her father is his son. She's never met them, never had contact with them, but she talks about them. The tragedy, the human tragedy and the psychological scars for this poor baby breaks your heart on the surface. But when it comes from a man who continually tells us, your children are our children. We are going to ensure the dignity of every human person. We're going to make sure that everybody is lifted up. He can't even do it for his own flesh and blood. So it ends up being a non-political personal tragedy in the family that now becomes a political anvil around his neck as he goes into this election, because the idea that he's the great family man or the conciliator who's going to bring unity and love to everyone, that narrative is shot. And what a shame. What a tragedy for the Biden family, but more importantly for this little girl.
Yeah, the little girl. They don't even want her to have the Biden last name. I mean, it would be, in the world, it would be a nice thing. And it happens to be a reflection of a reality. They've already done this paternity test. They know it's actually true. And the idea that there are some government bureaucrats on the government dime sitting around having a meeting saying, how should the president answer the question about how many grandkids does the president have?
Jason, you know what it shows? It shows the lengths the president will go to protect the misdeeds of his son and to cover them up. And it's not only this poor child that he had out of wedlock. It's many other misdeeds. And those, I think, will come tumbling forward in the days ahead. So who knows where Joe Biden goes from here. It's amazing how closely he's holding Hunter, though, really, since his own indictment broke out and that plea deal.
Yeah. Mike, final word to you.
I would say that Joe Biden has shown himself to be a monster. He's the president of the United States. He could find a way, even quietly, to take care of his 4-year-old granddaughter, and instead he's going out of his way to make it more difficult. It seems like this 4-year-old granddaughter is the only Biden who's not on some corrupt foreign payroll. This is totally shameful by Joe Biden, totally shameful by Jill Biden. They should be ashamed of themselves.
Yeah, well, I agree. I agree. Raymond, Mike, thank you so much. And Raymond, you'll be in this seat on Wednesday, guest hosting for Laura Ingraham. We'll see you on Wednesday.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.